Marco Reus. Daniel Malen! Wonderful!
Fantastic from Reus. Jude Bellingham, that's excellent. Jude Bellingham, this is absolutely brilliant. Jude Bellingham! Absolutely magnificent.
Reina, brilliant from the American. Just like that.
Graceful. Sally Hurts-down for Anthony Modeste.
Close. Not a bad idea. And there it is for Coco. For Borussia Dortmund. The long wait is over. Unbridled joy in the Revier Derby.
Hello and welcome back to the BVB podcast. And for the very first time, I am your host, Carver. That's right, Jake ditched me. No, Jake is unfortunately busy tonight and we have a scheduling conflict for the rest of the week, but nevertheless, welcome. Today we are covering Borussia Dortmund's abysmal 2-0 defeat against Energy Drink FC in the quarterfinals of the DFB Pokal and their crucial response to keep the title ambitions alive against Union with a 2-1 win in the Bundesliga. But before we get to those matches, we have some breaking news from earlier this morning, as Julian Brandt has officially extended his contract with Dortmund until 2026. Juli stated, "I am looking forward to the next few years in black and yellow, and I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to celebrate something big together." He went into more detail about his feelings about the club, which is on Dortmund's YouTube channel that they uploaded today, so feel free to check that out. This is great news. Brandt has completely turned his Dortmund career around in the past year. Jake and I talk about him all the time on the show, #BrandtBoys. He's easily been one of, if not our best playmaker in attack. He's showing more aggression and competency in his defensive efforts as well, dropping deeper into the midfield to help progress the ball. It's just been overall very exciting to see that we have a regen, in my opinion, of Reus, in a sense, for this team for years to come. So again, Brandt has extended to 2026. Hopefully we'll have a few more extensions announced here in the coming weeks. I think we're a little behind given during the international break we were supposed to have more news regarding Bellingham, Hummels, Reus, but we're still looking to finalize some details with those players. I know for sure with Reus, we're looking to hopefully have an answer soon. He was wanting a 2-year contract, and I know the club was pushing back and wanting a 1-year. And I think we're going to go with more of a performance-based contract with his salary, and maybe that'll kind of nudge him on the edge of signing with us. So hopefully there's more news to come regarding those extensions. But moving on to the Pokal game from last week, which was painful, to say the least. Just, wow. Unfortunately, Haller was unavailable for this game, so we were forced to change our shape and play style a bit, especially with Malen being the lone striker up top. Game started with Dortmund having the worst half I've ever seen, at least in a long time now. And this is coming off the Bayern game just before as well. I mean, 2 games in a row that were pretty bad, but this was much worse. Starting the game off looking extremely wobbly in defense, misplacing passes left and right, and looking pretty clueless at times as well, as Leipzig continued to pile on the pressure, exploiting us on the counter with their pace and trying to find space to exploit as well, just creating chance after chance in the first 10 minutes. And again, painful to watch, given you would expect this team to come out and respond, given their horrendous performance against Bayern just a few days prior to that. We knew this 3-game stretch was going to be extremely difficult. We knew this 3-game stretch was going to be crucial and vital to the rest of our season, given we could be knocked out of the Pokal, and if we don't take these games against Bayern and Union seriously, we could very well be out of the title race in the Bully as well. So it was crucial that we got a grip on this game early on. And if it weren't for Leipzig not capitalizing and Werner just being shit, and also Kobel being back to his best, we should have been down 3-0 even in the first 15-20 minutes, in my opinion. But we just could not slow down the game or the tempo whatsoever. Again, Leipzig continued to just press us nonstop. We could not stay compact whatsoever. There were a lot of gaps in our defense, gaps behind. Hummels obviously didn't look up to really much Matt fitness either. I don't know if he's just, just given compared to the first half of the season and how fit he looked. And I know he talked about during the preseason in the summer, He played, I think it was a lot of tennis that helped him keep his fitness, to help him be in, he said, I think the best shape he's been in a long time, at least since he's back into a Dortmund kit. But he just looks like I don't know if the age is really getting to him, I guess, finally, but he's just really slow. And he was really slow this game, of course, too, which we'll talk about more as the game went on. But again, couldn't control the game whatsoever. Our possession was pretty poor as well. We could not string together 5 and 10 yard passes, which was just abysmal to watch. I want to talk about Ozcan real quick. Does he not just look like a man with close to zero confidence in himself at the moment? I mean, shying away from duels, choosing not to pick out runs from players like Royce, who made a pretty good run, a great run in behind in the first quarter hour of the game. And he looked at him for a split second and immediately just kind of made a regressive pass. And I get he's simple with his passing. I mentioned in his debut against Hertha that he's simple with his passing, but I also mentioned he was very smart with his passing as well. And he had just more confidence on the ball in general. But right now, again, he just seems so negative. It's either side to side, backwards, or a misplaced pass going forward, and then, again, shying away from the duel to win possession back. It's just really disappointing, given how promising he looked at the beginning of the season. And I still think there is a good player in there, in Ozcan. I do believe that. And with the money we spent for him, he was obviously a bargain as well. And he's only been here half a year, so he's got plenty of time to improve. But that's just it. He needs to improve. And I really just think he just was extremely disappointing this game. And he's had a really disappointing start to the calendar year in general, unfortunately. But yeah, Ozcan he was just almost just another man on the field at times, it seemed like. But anyway, after we finally started to keep the ball a bit better, after I think the 13th minute or so, we could sort of have a decent look at goal with quick switch of play. And then we almost played Malen in. But unfortunately, it didn't really pan out. Started to control the tempo a little bit better after about 20 minutes, but immediately after that, we concede. Hummels was beat with his pace, but it's not just exclusive to him either. It was just poor defending overall to concede in that first goal, and it had been coming since the very first whistle. I mean, if it hadn't been for Werner just not finishing off his chances and Kobel just being in the form really to what we know he can be at, should have been down 2 or 3-0 easy. And even after that first goal, you'd expect the team to wake the hell up. You still have a title to compete for, and you still have a very realistic chance of winning the tournament if you get past Leipzig. And we just continued to be second to every 50-50 ball. Again, just looking really flat, really limp. Leipzig showed up to play, and we just didn't, especially in that first half. We waited for the game to come to us rather than taking the game by the horns and going to win. Really flat, really limp, and just a flaccid performance in that first half. It was tough to watch. And whenever we did win possession, we couldn't find a gap in the middle, nor was there even a midfielder to release pressure or a center forward to play or up an attack to play off of. So we kept trying to force the ball through our fullbacks down the touchline, and it always ended up a cul-de-sac. 0 play down the middle, and it was just the same forced play over and over, even though we knew it wasn't going to work. We knew it was just a lost cause trying to get up those touchlines. We couldn't progress the ball past even the halfway line. What seemed like the majority of the half, in my opinion, barring maybe 2 or 3, I don't know, chances that we got into their final third, and that's not even really a chance at goal, but just us getting a sniff of just their side of the field. So I wonder if, we're offloading to Hood. He's not extending. Are we going to replace him with another press-resistant center midfielder at the moment? Because this game should have been a glaring example of why we need someone like him in this squad. Someone who can, again, break the press, who can ping balls out from the back. Chan has some of those qualities, for sure, but he's not that kind of midfielder that can actually progress the ball like that. He's not a Dahoud. He's more of the muscle in the 6th position who's going to break up play and you could see just with that center midfielder and also not having Haller up top, and not even, Malen, he didn't have a good game either, but I'm not going to have a go at him just simply because, at least in the sense of his position, because he's up there just left to dry. He's up there alone. He's not a center forward. He's not going to win those aerial duels. He doesn't have the physicality for someone to play off of. And you can't expect to get really anything going down the middle with no center midfielder like Dahoud or center forward like Haller. Overall, it was just, the first half from Dortmund was just so careless and so pedestrian looking. Again, like I mentioned last week, we were just really looking like the pre-World Cup Dortmund. You'd expect, coming off a 10-game winning streak, and we had some stumbles here and there, of course, against Chelsea, and Bayern was a tough watch as well, but this is a game where you can bounce back, and you still have silverware to compete for. So Wolf comes off at half. Ryerson is put on the right. He was initially as our left back for this game. I think Ryerson, he may be able to play a bit better against Raum, the Leipzig's left back, as I feel he's a little bit better on the ball in terms of skill. We also switched to 2 up front, giving Malen some much-needed help because his decision-making was not great this game, don't get me wrong. But again, that aside, Malen just has zero support in this game. So it just looked like we had 10 men on the field at times, and Malen was just kind of out there left to dry. So it was a miracle that we were only down 1-0 in the first half. I can't just stress that enough. It's insane. I wish I could say the second half was a big improvement too, but it wasn't. No idea how Leipzig didn't score 3-4 goals before the first hour. Jude came on right after the first hour and helped us drive up the middle a bit more, just like I was saying, progress the ball a little bit more in the middle, but it was still just such a flat performance. Jude helped a little bit, sure, but having no target figure up front or even just really an idea going forward rather than forcing it up the touch line and getting it recycled back and side-to-side passing and then just getting exposed in the counter, that was pretty much cut and dry just how this game was, unfortunately. Where is the fire? Where is the passion from these players? This was much, much worse than the Bayern game. At least in Munich, we started on the front foot. We won a corner in the first 45 seconds ago or so against Bayern. At the end of the game, we scored 2 goals. I thought we maybe had 2 or 3 minutes max of decent football against Leipzig. Maybe. And that was right before we conceded the first goal too. So it was tough to watch, man. So you're knocked out of the Pokal, unfortunately, and now you're going into the third game of this an incredibly difficult 3-game stretch. Munich away, Leipzig away in the Pokal. Now you're back home against Union. Lost 2-1 against Leipzig, obviously knocked out of the Pokal. And against Berlin, now you have Haller back. We have a slightly different shape here. So you had that target man up front. Chan was back in the middle. Jude was starting again, so we got a little bit of a rest against Leipzig, which I think out of any game to rest Jude, I was a little confused of why we chose against Leipzig, but 2020, I guess, hindsight is 2020, I guess, on that one. But either way, Malen got the start again, this time again with a little bit more help up front. Started better. We're still very sloppy in our build-up play for sure, and we invited Union to keep the pressure on, invite us into those traps, force mistakes in dangerous areas, but at least we started a little bit more on the front foot compared to the game previously, and we grew into the game well. Having Haller was a massive difference in how we play. Some people were saying these past few weeks, when are the goals going to start to fall for Haller? When is Haller going to start netting more? And I've talked about his fitness a bunch, whatever, so I'm not going to reiterate that. But I do want to talk about, looking past all of that, the man is just a figure that we need up top at the moment. Someone who can create space for other attackers like Malen. Someone that could win aerial duels and can provide space and link up play in the middle. That's someone we desperately needed against the Cans in the Pokal game. It's night and day, in my opinion. I'm not even talking really about Modeste because he lacks pretty much everything that I was talking about at the moment, at least besides his physicality. But Haller he's just that center forward figure that we need to play off of. And he's going to win those areas. I mean, he's for sure still, again, trying to get back up to match fitness. He's not as strong as looking, I think, just given because of his treatment and everything. So he's still getting bullied a bit by center backs. But still, at least we have somewhat of a chance going forward down the middle when you have Haller up top. So, started, a little bit better than Leipzig, grew into the game well. Eventually, we scored right at the half-hour mark. It was a classic Dortmund team goal. Switch of play from Brandt, followed by a great cross from Rafa, and finished off by Malen. Malen does a great job of getting on the inside of the defender and keeping a cool head to finish off the play. It's a goal you would expect from Haller to score, honestly. I mean, that's a classic center-forward goal. Nonetheless, Donny on the score sheet again, and that's Malen's 4th goal and 2nd assist in his last 6 games now. So 6 goal contributions in 6 games. And I ask myself, and I ask you guys, the listeners, are we finally seeing the arrival of Donyell Malen? I mean, it looks like things are really beginning to click for him. Still loads of room improvement, for sure. To be sure, his decision-making is still miles to go for that. But he looks better and better by the game this calendar year. I mean, he looks like he's got a little bit more confidence in himself and a little gravitas about him. You've seen like his roulettes and everything, and he's linking up play. So I'm happy that we have Malen as another attacker at the moment, because right now you're kind of looking at the squad and you're wondering how we're going to score goals at times. And I'm glad we have another option that can provide that pace. That clearly Malen can show he can get in these spaces as well, and has a composure to finish. Again, it's that's the kind of system he needs. Almost Malen is having another striker like Haller for him and with him to provide him that space. And it was the same way against Leverkusen whenever Adeyemi started picking up for him. I think that was Adeyemi's first Bundesliga goal, if I'm not wrong, when we were away at Leverkusen. You see, whenever the cross comes in, Haller is just like gravity. Just 3 or 4 of the Leverkusen defenders are surrounding him and swarming him, and it just leaves acres of space for Adeyemi to receive the ball in the opposition's box, take a touch, and then finish. So that's huge for whoever else we want to pair up top with him. I mean, you could keep going down the list with Moukoko. It doesn't matter. So go up 1-0 at half. Come out the second half. We concede in the 60th minute, unfortunately. That was, Sule was in La La Land for that goal. I mean, that was shocking. I mean, I talked about, again, the fire and the passion from these players. I have no clue what was going through Sule's head. Not even just him not jumping and trying to win the initial header, but he just watched afterwards and had no intention of hustling back. I mean, that's just pure laziness. And you see that from time to time in Sule's game where it's just like, do you even give a fuck? Do you give a fuck? Yeah, it's slightly concerning that he can be that player sometimes. So you're hoping he can maybe kind of put that stuff behind him as he grows older and can just look like he give a shit a little bit more in times like this. Because again, I mean, I cannot understate the importance of this game, let alone we only have 1 goal lead, and didn't jump, turn around, and just walked back while the play is still happening, leaving Hummels out to dry. So we conceded a goal, 1-1. The team responded well right after conceding, though, I do have to say. We had a few shots on target, won some corners. Sule had a chance at goal in one of those corners and just headed it right over the crossbar, unfortunately. But, we had that energy. We didn't drop our shoulders, which, how many times have I said it on this show that this team is very prone to that? Moukoko comes on in the 74th minute for Haller. It's the right call from Terzic, in my opinion. I mean, Haller was a big help. I'm not trying to contradict that by any means, but Moukoko is a game changer in these situations. And that's what Terzic said, actually, to Moukoko, and Moukoko talked about in his interview on the Dortmund channel as well, that Terzic gave him that confidence and told him, you can go change the game in this match. And that's exactly what he did. I mean, even before Moukoko scored, he was looking dangerous. initially he had a similar opportunity from his goal, but he just didn't finish his run, unfortunately. I think that was just kind of a lack of instinct. But still, I mean, he kept his head up, he kept trying, he kept pushing himself, and eventually, a few minutes later, he did finally actually finish his run in the second time. And, I mean, the Berlin defenders were kind of sitting there dazed and confused for a second, too. But Moukoko, again, just he's got the instinct and took the initiative to actually finish his run, follow the ball, and had a great first touch around the keeper, had a cool, collected finish, put us up 2-1. Now, I forget if this happened before or after the goal, forgive me, but Rafa made one of the most, I would say the most important tackle of this season so far, which is something I thought that would never come out of my mouth. Who said Rafa can't defend? It wasn't me. I couldn't believe, I mean, he even slightly puts a foot wrong there, and it's a penalty and possibly a red card. And the fact that he just defended that so well is crazy. So he kept Berlin still at 1 goal, finished off the game pretty well, in my opinion. JBG came on, had a good chance to get us a 3rd goal, but made the wrong decision in shooting whenever Jude made a run to his left. But it was a still strong finish. It was definitely a strong finish for these stretch of 3 games, given how dreadful the first 2 were. I was really concerned how we were going to come out against Berlin, given our performance against Leipzig. I mean, you go to Munich and you get pummeled. That's nothing new, unfortunately, in recent years. But you try to shake that off. You're still in the race, and you're obviously still in the Pokal. Go out and try to get a result. We completely bottle it and have a flaccid performance against Leipzig. But now, yeah, again, really concerned against how we're going to play against Berlin. I didn't think we were going to come out and get a win here. Honestly, I was scared because we know how dangerous this Berlin side can be. We know how aggressive this Berlin side can be, and we know how strong mentally this Berlin side can be. They do not give up. They do not let up, and they do not give teams to work with the space that they have. So it's a huge win, huge win. And Dortmund now sit 2 points behind Bayern. There is no room for any more losses. We're already extremely fortunate enough to be in the position that we are in right now, given we have 7 losses. I mean, it's funny that we have 7 losses, which it's not terrible, but at the same time, I think 6 of those came before the calendar year. So, again, very fortunate enough to be even in second place and also still pretty damn close to Bayern in the table. I can't imagine Bayern are going to drop many more points this season, to be honest with you. So we just have to keep doing our part and keeping the pressure on them to get them to keep performing, which is what we're doing this weekend. We're away at Stuttgart, who have won 2 of their last 3 games in all comps. I watched the Stuttgart game when they hosted Bayern a few weeks ago, and they tested them, man. I mean, they, just like Berlin, they did not give up. They came and took the game to Bayern. They had a lot of great chances. They scored a goal. I think they were pretty unfortunate enough to not have a point at the end of the day in that game, to be honest with you, at least from what I remember. But either way, we'll have to wait and see how we perform against Stuttgart. I saw today, according to the BBB News blog, that apparently Sule is having some muscular problems, so he may be doubtful, unfortunately. The injury list just continues to grow. Schlotterbeck there was video evidence of him being, I don't even know if I'm going to use the word training here, but I'll say individual training for lack of a better term, just getting some touches on the ball. So that was pretty promising to see, given he still will be ruled out for at least a few more weeks, minimum. But, we're not even barely in halfway through April, and the man is already back on the field. So that's very promising. Hopefully we can continue to have depth in that center back position. I'm interested to see how our back line looks going into this next game. If Sule is hurt, now we're down to 1 fit center back in Hummels. I said last week that Chan should stay in his number 6, but I'll tell you what, if we don't have another one at the moment, I don't know how else we're going to really proceed. I don't think Koulibaly, again, is at where he needs to be going into a game like this. So again, we'll have to wait and see. Thursday, Friday, we'll have more updates for you, given, Terzic, what he tells the media and how the physio team is feeling. Other than that, it's a very short episode, but I have no one to riff off with, so it's just, we're looking, again, pretty short episode today. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Whoever has given us 5-star reviews in the past or recently, or even if you haven't given us a review, but you just spent the last 30 minutes with listening to me ramble, thank you. Genuine thank you to all of you who support, for all of you who just listen to the show, for tuning in. We love doing this for you guys, and hopefully we can be a solid resource for you, for people who are just getting into Dortmund, or rather just have been a fan for a while and need some more coverage from English sources. So either way, thank you very much for listening. If you do want to give us a 5-star and want a shout out, shoot us a screenshot or whatever and of your rating, and we'll give you a shout out next week. I know Jake mentioned that last week, but we did have some more ratings, but I just didn't see someone sending any, so I just didn't know who to shout out. So if you are feeling that, you do not have to do that, but if you are, go ahead and give us a 5-star, and we will see you next week after the Stuttgart game. Have a great weekend. Good luck to Dortmund, and maybe we'll have some more times I'm the host in the future. I have no idea. Maybe you hated this, so. All right.